Hello, wrestling fans. We're here today with a phenomenal one, AJ Styles. AJ, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
AJ, I want to talk about life as AJ Styles before you got into pro wrestling. Talk about some of your sports background that you had before you got involved in pro wrestling.
Well, there was football, of course, and I understand I played sports, from, it seemed like, the time I was born, my brothers, always playing, so I was always playing with those guys in sports. But when I got to high school, I'd done pretty well in football and done really well in wrestling, and actually went to college and wrestled.
What college did you go to?
Now, I went to Anderson, South Carolina, which is a Baptist college, which I think I was the only Christian there. But, for what it was worth, it was a good experience, and I wasted a lot of money.
Talk about some of the amateur wrestling that you did in college.
Well, the whole thing about, wrestling colleges, we got to travel a lot. And that was fun the first year, but after that I decided, that's all it was, and I was just wasting money. But it was nice to get to see the states, some of the United States, and just have fun, hanging out, same old, same old.
Did you stop playing football when in high school ended?
I actually had the opportunity to either go play football or wrestle, and I knew that I was going to have to prove myself in football because I wasn't the biggest guy in the world. But I know I've already proven myself in wrestling. So I just went the easy way out, and I kind of regret that now. But, it kind of seems to be paying off now, the whole wrestling bit.
You still follow football as a fan?
Absolutely. I'm a big Georgia fan, Georgia Bulldog fan. Love football. Love it.
Now, you were born and raised in Georgia, right?
Actually, I was born in North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. My dad was a Marine. So I was born there, but, when I was a year old, we moved to Gainesville.
Mm-hmm. Now, what made you decide to get in the pro wrestling business?
Well, I'd be a liar if I didn't say it was the money. But by the time I found out that there was no money when you start, I already fell in love with it. But ironic enough, it was just, I watched it every now and then, thought that was something I could do, and I told some friends if they ever found a place to train, I'd go with them. And they actually found a place. I didn't think they would. So I went up there with them and took a couple bumps, and I was like, you know what? I can do this.
Were you a fan of pro wrestling as a kid?
Yeah, I didn't get to watch too much of it, but I was a fan, on Saturday nights when, all of them would come on in a row and you got to catch everything. But then again, I was like in, first and second grade.
Right.
So after that, I really didn't get to watch wrestling too much. We moved around and didn't have cable, so didn't get to watch too much wrestling.
Talk about life as a military kid.
Well, I mean, even if my dad, it was shortly after that he got out of the Marines, but then again, he was always a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I got tired of rebel, get up, all that crap, and get kicked in the butt. And my dad was just he was a drill sergeant. And, man, he bossed us around, and he was probably the scariest man I ever knew, at least when I was a kid anyway.
I know you say you weren't a huge wrestling your entire life, but were there any guys as a kid that left a lasting impression on you?
I always looked up to my older brothers, really. I mean, they always, were doing whatever. If they were good in sports, I wanted to be good in sports. So I always looked up to them.
How about any wrestlers? The only
guys,
not necessarily looking up to, but just that you had memories of. And
the only guys that I can remember that I really wanted to watch were the Road Warriors.
Right.
And we vaguely, got to watch wrestling. So when the antenna would pick up, then we got to watch wrestling. But usually I was outside turning the antenna and hearing going on while my two older brothers watched.
You said your friends actually found a wrestling school. Who were your friends?
Greg, him and his brother, they found NCW, which is in Cornelia, went to NWA Wildside, which is now in NWA Anarchy. Mm-hmm. So they went up there and somehow, I don't know how they found the place. I really don't. But they did, thank God.
Did any of those guys stick it out? Do we know them today?
No, they quit. They quit, and I bet they're kicking themselves in the butt now.
You still keep in contact with those guys?
I don't get to see those guys anymore. I used to live close to them, but I don't get to see them anymore.
You started, I think your first name was Mr. Olympia?
The first match I ever had was as Mr. Olympia because they made me a mask with some goofy rings on it, and I had a singlet from college and wrestling shoes, so I guess it just...
There was a rumor that you actually were training for the Olympics as a gymnastics.
That is, Alan Jones never did, but maybe AJ Styles did. I don't know. Apparently that's what they think. but not so much.
How did NWA get started from NWA Wildside get started?
Well, wrestling for NCW for about maybe 4 months. Or maybe it was 4 months. And then we went to Ville, Georgia, and that's where we met Bill Behrens.
First time he met me, he didn't like me at all.
First, I wanted to kill Bill Behrens. I hated him.
The intruder. I was the guy that had come in. In fact, I think I was called the damn Yankee.
He was doing Loganville, NWA Loganville, and they kind of talked him into buying NCW, which then turned into NWA Wildside.
We didn't get along real well. I used to get mad at him when he'd do stupid things, and he didn't understand that.
I thought he had bad ideas and all kinds of stuff, and sometimes he did, but for the most part, he helped out a lot.
What were some of the guys that you remember working in Wildside that first year?
Let's see. I worked the Boogaloo Crew, which is Scotty Wren and J.C. Daz. Rick Michaels, of course. Let's see. Those were some of the big guys. Eddie Golden, which probably, I don't know if, maybe nobody knows these guys, but I learned, it was little things that I learned from how to be a heel when that time, was going to come. So I learned a lot. It was good for me.
And was Rick Michaels your primary?
Oh, now let's get this straight. Rick Michaels can say he trained me, but then again, does an arm drag, a headlock, and shooting off the ropes really count as training? I don't think so. So I'm not giving him all the credit because I learned from everyone I ever got in the ring with. I honestly, when I first started, thought Rick Michaels was pretty good. But, and I'm grateful for him actually taking me in and letting me use the arena, because I felt like that's what I did.
One of the first memorable matches, the Wildside was one of the favorites of the internet crowd. And one of the first matches that I guess people look back to and remember you for is your match with Ron Killings.
Yep.
Do you have any memories of working, I guess it was K-Crush at that time?
Right. Yeah, it was, I love that match just because we had so much fun in it. And he'd wear these little clip-on things for his hair, and when I hit him, they'd go everywhere. And just little things that we did. I'm not saying that it was the best psychology in the world or even the best match, but we had a lot of fun, and the crowd seemed to enjoy it.
And how different is it wrestling Ron now that both of you have grown up as wrestlers?
Oh, man, it's totally different. We go, well, this would make more sense instead of going, hey, I'll just do a backflip and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot more fun and probably a lot more safe, but we still have a good time.
Bias up here is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Here we go. Hard shot. Forearm shot on Styles. And Crush has got things going his way at Y2 Chaos. As Jeff G. Bailey called it, Y2K Crush. What an insult to the company.
Big clothesline, nowhere to go into the corner. AJ Styles having to absorb the entire weight. 245 pounds, moving like a freight train. He can't even get him up.
He's cinched up, and he's got Styles vertical, and he drops it into the brain buster. Man, he caught all of that as Styles comes from 10 feet in the air, straight down on his face. Kip up into the split, and look at the ability of Crush. And here we go as Styles goes for the ride, reverse. Crush harder than that turnbuckle. And Styles coming, full speed, big drop kick into the moonsault with a hard clothesline. Y2 Chaos. I believe it is a 30-minute time limit, which is special.
This could be the home run.
Somebody home on the frog splash as Crush, as AJ. Surely not another 450. No. Shitty got it. We got two. We got yes.
You had some memorable feuds also with Air Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just mention anything you remember from that feud?
The great thing about Air Paris was he was very good at the psychology, telling a story in a match. And we told some great stories, and it got the fans were really involved in this.
Reality was the feud he was in with Air Paris that was seen by WCW executives, again, started to break him out and got him a little more well-known.
And it just kind of evolved into something bigger than that as we went in the WCW and tagged. So him and I done some great things together.
The first international talent that I could remember you working was Sabu came in and did a weekend stint with Wildside.
Sabu was then NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He came in. Yeah, we had a bad night with Sabu the night before, not the most impressive wrestling match ever in Sabu's history, but he came in the next night ready to redeem himself.
I can't say that I actually wrestled Sabu. I think I got a nut shot on him, and then he reminded me of my next spot, which was kind of funny because I only had one.
And that was AJ Styles' first NWA World Heavyweight title match. Not his most impressive effort. He barely got anything in there. It was all Sabu.
But, for what it was still Sabu. I still got to work him. He was still a big name. And for me, it was another highlight of my career.
Were you a little intimidated back then?
Absolutely. I mean, this is Sabu. This is the craziest man in wrestling, and you don't know much about him, but it was still, he got to put me through the table, and I was excited about that. I thought that was great. Excited to have him there.
Another feud that people remember is you and Jason Cross.
Yes. Jason Cross and I had a lot of similar moves, I guess you could say, which and done a lot of high-flying stuff together. And I think that's what made a good match between the both of us, because everybody wanted to see these two guys who were so much alike go at it. And we did, and we had some great matches.
He missed a lot of shows that he was, I guess, promised to be in.
Well, Jason, sometimes I don't know what he's thinking. He's one of the best high flyers I've ever known, and it seemed like once he was getting to a good place where he was at, whether it be Wildside or anywhere else, he'd slack off and miss a show and just ruin everything. So Jason, he just confused me sometimes.
One other one is David Young. Actually, maybe not started there, but David Young started to become more popular and known to the internet crowd through his Wildside days, and you worked with him on a number of occasions.
Yeah, and I got to know Dave before at a place called Good Old Days in Atlanta, where everybody went. The WCW guys who hadn't yet got a job would go there as well, like Plum Blow, and I think maybe O'Hare and some of those other guys came there. But David and I had some great matches in Wildside, and actually have become, great friends, probably best friends. But I just remember some of the matches that we'd have. Like, nobody wanted to catch Dave on a moonsault, and Dave he probably weighed about 260 back then. He was a heavy guy, but he was still able to pull off his moonsaults and stuff. So I didn't want to stop him from doing that. So I just, I weighed probably, 180, catching this 260-pound man. But we had some great matches, just because of that we were willing to do anything to make it a great match.
Well, we know AJ Styles did unprovokedly attack David Young. Styles up and over, lands on his feet. What amazing agility yet again. Young goes for a power bomb, but Styles counters out of that by landing on his feet. Big hurricanrana right in the middle of the ring.
I thought maybe they would resolve some of their differences right now. Styles goes charging. Good night, nurse. Which makes it all that much more difficult to mount a serious and a consistent attack against the phenomenal AJ.
David Young spins AJ Styles around into a reverse sidewalk slam. And I am not exaggerating in the least. Sunset flip. Counter there by Young. Rolling back over, but Styles with another combination. Quickly countered by Young. Styles rolls through, counters yet again. David Young bridges up beautifully and into a backslide. Styles going for a full Nelson there, but Young with another cradle. AJ Styles with another cradle. And both of these men to their feet, and they're not done. Big clothesline rotating by AJ Styles. Unbelievable action here. And he's always going to come back to NWA Wildside because he's just as much a part of the dream we share here at Wildside. And David Young now also a part of that dream. Goes for a German suplex a second time. Styles counters, an insult to entering. Nails Young with a spine buster over his own, and David Young kicks out.
Young did not anticipate a spine buster. I know it's often de rigueur these days in pro wrestling in order to shake up the psychological foundation of your opponent by doing his own finishing move on him.
But there's only one problem when you try to do the spine buster on David Young, and that you can never possibly do it as effectively as he does. That's why he earned the nickname Messiah of the Spine Buster.
Yeah, you can't do it as perhaps with all the power, but there's a surprise level in there. There's a surprise factor, and AJ Styles knows that one all too well, as the Phenomenal One is on that top rope. And still not able to hang on to the Messiah. Messiah hangs on to AJ, no problem.
David Young hangs on there.
A Styles clash. Hey, and done very well, with authority, I might add.
Full stomp to the head of David Young, the Phenomenal One, on the top rope. Full 50 splash.
A thing of beauty, but David Young still manages to get a shoulder up. Beauty notwithstanding.
Centimeter, Steven, a centimeter away.
That's all it takes.
And AJ Styles will be the winner of this contest. And there's no championships on the line here in this matchup. It's strictly about pride.
And apparently a lot of hurt feelings, whether it's justified or not. Even at this stage, we're not exactly sure how justified those feelings are. Styles once again going up to that top rope. Going to the well once too much. Oh my goodness. And a spine buster off the top from the Messiah. Who else?
Super Buster by David Young. And this one's over.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner, the Messiah of the Spine Buster, David Young.
Just throw a couple other names out there that were, I guess, NWA Wildside alumni. Memories of Laz.
Oh, man. Those were some funny matches. And I got to have matches with Laz when I was a heel, so it was so much better. We'd do all kind of spots where it looked like he was trying to give me a blowjob and stuff like that, and try to fight him off, or if I'd try to pin him, he'd try to hold me down on him. Just little stuff back then that was so funny. And I got to wrestle him in Nashville a couple times, and that crowd, went crazy over that kind of stuff. And we just had a good time. I loved wrestling him.
How about John Phoenix?
John was a lot like Jason Cross, very innovative. Just the stuff he done, and he was another high flyer that was really good. Of course, he was about 6'2" and skinny as a rail, but he had some good matches, and he always made me laugh, and I still try to keep in touch with him now.
How about Adam Jacobs?
Adam Jacobs is another guy that you'd love going on the road with because he'd make you laugh the whole time there. And there's one match in Ring of Honor that David and Adam and I got to do together, and it was a great match. Had a good time, and even Adam and I had some great matches. There's a lot of great matches I've had in Wildside.
You became much busier, and so your Wildside appearances became a little less frequent. One time you were supposed to wrestle Jeff Jarrett. I think it was October of 2003. You were supposed to wrestle Jeff Jarrett, where he was going to come in and he had the NWA belt, and then that match never came off. Do you remember why that never happened?
I don't remember. I don't think it was my fault though. I don't think I missed the show. I think it was Jeff who missed the show back then, if I remember correctly. I don't know why. No one ever told me. I didn't think much of it, to be honest with you. But I really don't. Like I said, I don't know much about it.
How about the last Wildside match that you did, which was in March of last year, and you and David Young presented Bill Behrens with a plaque? Do you remember what you said in the ring?
I don't remember exactly what we said. In fact, I know that Dave spoke the most and said the right things. That I was very I agreed with everything he said. That and just about Bill being there for some of the guys like me and David that always try to take care of us, make sure we were going in the right direction, and still today he does that.
Yeah, Bill handles a lot of your bookings for you.
Bill handles all of my bookings. I don't know anything until Bill takes care of it.
He's consulting to the creation of a video game in Canada. We have multiple pieces of merchandise that are available from various distributors. And I also handle all of his outside bookings. AJ is quite literally the busiest man on the independents in professional wrestling, without question, to the point where I often worry about his schedule.
I trust Bill with my family, everything. Wrestling is part of my life, and I trust him with that. I mean, Bill he's like a father to me. He takes care of me. I don't have to worry about somebody stabbing me in the back as long as Bill's watching it.
Some of the guys that maybe you don't know as well, but they're competing now for Anarchy and stuff. How about Seth DeLay?
Seth DeLay, oh yeah. Now, we can make an argument about something. The Nip Up Rana isn't actually my idea. It was actually his. But I also had a move called the Flying Squirrel, where I'd grab my legs and just jump off the top rope and looked weird. I don't know what it. Anyway, I saw him do it, and I said, okay, if you're doing that one, I'm doing the nip up rana, and therefore I can't claim, you know, the idea of the nip up rana. It's his. It's Seth DeLay's. And, you know, he's a great guy, and he's becoming a great wrestler.
Some people are saying that he's the next AJ Styles. You know,
I've heard a lot about people becoming the next AJ Styles. So there's been a couple of them. And I don't know if it's offensive to them or not, because I think they want to be the first, you know, Seth DeLay, the first Austin Aries, or, you know, whatever. Because, you know, there's so many other guys that are so much more athletic and just amazing. I wouldn't want to be compared to AJ Styles because of that, you know.
How about Slim J?
Oh, you know, Slim J, he surprises me with some of the stuff he does, because you just don't expect it. And he's growing as a wrestler, and I think that's the most important thing for him right now, is just to make sure he keeps growing, keeps being a sponge, and gets in the gym, man. And, you know, eventually he'll make it to that next level.
You were beginning to break out as WCW was coming to a close, and you had an opportunity to wrestle for them at the end as a tag team with Air Raid. Do you remember how you got into WCW and some of the members?
The reason why I got into WCW, like I said before, was because me and Air Paris were having such great matches, and we had a developmental deal with WCW. So the office guys would check out the guys who were developmental with WCW at Wildside, but they'd end up seeing our matches too with me and Air Paris. So talk. Hey, why don't you come up to Baltimore? And we came up there, and they said, you know, I don't think we'll be able to get you a dark match, but we'll get you this spot with DDP where you're doing the book signing. We done a little skit with that. And finally we got a dark match. I think we had a lot of people pulling up, us Bob Ryder and Jeremy Borash. And we actually done some cool stuff in that dark match. It was really neat.
Did any of the veterans talk to you or make you feel included?
Arn Anderson said, you know, he was like, you got to get some new gear. You can't wrestle in your sweats and stuff like that, because of the gimmick that I had at the time. I was wearing sweatpants and tennis shoes. Mm-hmm. You know, that was just the gimmick I had. Gosh, and I can't imagine what they were thinking about me in Paris, because Paris wore, like, you know, Jeff Hardy stuff and Matt Hardy stuff back then. So I can't imagine what they thought about us. But the next week I had boots and tights and everything else.
So there was never any plans to say, we want you to work this, we want to give you a contract? It was
no. Well, we had a contract.
You did?
Yes, we definitely did sign with WCW, and, you know, it just unfortunately went out of business.
Right. You did have some dark matches for WWF shortly after WCW went out of business. I think you took on Hurricane.
Yes.
One time.
And I had a great match with him. I really bumped hard for him, and, you know, and then after that match, I was invited to go, I think it was to Charlotte, and I wrestled, oh gosh, what was his name? I hope he doesn't see this, because he's going to be mad at me. I should know it. He done the gay gimmick kind of, and gosh, it's going to...
Was it Lenny?
No. We'll come back to it. When I remember, I'm just going to say it.
Well, who contacted you about working the dark matches for WWF?
Well, you know, Bill always had connections, so I'm pretty sure that he hooked that up for me. And, you know, and shortly after that, there was the camp. After the matches, there was a camp that I went to, which a lot of us went to. Sonny Siaki went to, Desire went to, Chad Collier, Matt Stryker was there. Who else am I missing? And some of the WWE guys right now. Tyson Tomko, he was there. Matt Morgan was there. For some reason, that's the only ones I can think of, but I'm sure there's more.
There was a rumor I was going to ask you about that you were possibly the first person to turn down a developmental deal from WWE.
Well, you know, I don't know if I was, but they made it easy for me. You know, they wanted to pay me $500 a week to move to Cincinnati and pay for an apartment, you know, to train.
Mm-hmm. Did you already have family obligations at that time?
Absolutely. My wife was in college, and I just couldn't. There's no way I could say, hey, you know what? You're moving back with your mom. I'm going to move to Cincinnati. We'll separate for this long. If we want to see each other, I'll have to drive to Gainesville, Georgia from Cincinnati every week. It just, you know, You think about that, and that's just, it's not feasible. That's not the way the family should be. And even though I do a lot of traveling today, it's my job. That, it wasn't paying me enough to, miss out on family time.
Was there ever a time around that time period where you felt maybe wrestling wasn't in your destiny?
I don't know. I don't think so, because even after what happened with WCW, I was like, well, I'll go back to the Indies and, I'll make the best out of my opportunities. I honestly thought I think it was the 53rd anniversary when Christopher Daniels and I, first wrestled for the first time. My whole thing about going down there and wrestling was because Hashimoto was going to be down there. Mm-hmm. I thought, well, when he sees me wrestling, he's going to want to, that was just my mentality. I'm just, being positive about everything. When he sees me wrestle, he's going to want to hire me, mm-hmm. which didn't happen at all. But, and I guess until later. But, I got to wrestle Chris Daniels.
And to the surprise of everyone there, every single person there, AJ Styles ended up beating Christopher Daniels. This was huge. In fact, if you see a copy of that match ever, the cameraman was so shocked, you can hear in the background, oh my God, what an upset.
I started going, California, Super 8, and all kinds of places. I got booked everywhere.
It took off right after
that.
Yeah. Do you think, obviously you're doing tremendously well with TNA right now with all your independent bookings, but do you think you turning down a developmental deal would be held against you in the future if you wanted to ever work for WWE?
My opinion is, if they wanted me then, they'll want me now. Mm-hmm. I think that I've learned so much more back then. I don't even, it's just ridiculous on how much I've learned. So I don't, if they think that's a problem, then, I don't want to be there.
You had referenced the King of the Indies tournament it was out in California. Mm-hmm. Who called you about participating in that tournament?
I have no idea. That was so long ago. I have no idea. And it turns out that I actually had to get a sponsor to sponsor me to fly out there, because they weren't going to pay me to go out there. Oh. So they were just going to pay for the plane ticket, and that was it. But
was that your first time working on the West Coast?
Yeah, it sure was. And but you know what? That was the first time I met Samoa Joe. I think all those guys: Samoa Joe, Low Key, Spanky, Bryan Danielson, Frankie Kazarian. That was the first time that I met these guys who I was going to see, every weekend, in the future. But it was cool that I got to meet all those guys then.
Both Rob Feinstein and Gabe Sapolsky credited that tournament for giving them the idea to start Ring of Honor. Could you feel something was different with that tournament, with that crew that you had?
Well, yeah, because these guys really were the best that I'd ever seen. Like, there were so many different styles there, and it just, like, everybody, it was so different. There was no guy that was really the same and even looked the same. Samoa Joe and Low Key may have had a similar style, but Samoa Joe was so much bigger than Low Key. And then there's Chris Daniels and AJ Styles, and it just, they may do some similar stuff, but they look totally different. And it kept, on and on and on. It was so many different styles and looks.
And with that was the beginning of Ring of Honor. Do you remember any of the discussion that took place about what they had as a vision for Ring of Honor?
You know what? No, because I was on the third show of Ring of Honor. I wasn't even on their first or second. I made it on to their third, which was great. But I never heard anything about it until I just remember after their first show, started hearing rumors about how great it was. So that was about it, really.
Once you did start, did you get any pressure about working Ring of Honor dates versus some of the other dates?
No, I never did. But I knew that Ring of Honor was definitely the bigger independent that I needed to work for.
What do you think of the type of crowd? I guess it now exists all over the Northeastern, but we call it the Ring of Honor style crowd, where it's like a supermarket type crowd. Do you enjoy wrestling in front of that crowd? Or
Absolutely. They respect what we do. They know that we get hurt. They know they know us. Yeah, we're regular people, but we're coming out here busting our butt to make sure you get entertained. And even if that means, getting hurt sometimes, they appreciate that. And, that's the kind of fans I want. I still want them to be fans and have a good time. But, I appreciate the respect that they give us, because I think we deserve it.
And shortly after that, TNA actually began in the summer of 2002, and you were chosen to be the centerpiece of their X division, which was the most innovative thing that we've seen now in the last couple of years in wrestling. Do you remember any of the conversations that you had before starting with TNA?
Well, I just remember, we were all praying for this company to start, because we heard rumors of it. And so we definitely started praying, that's for sure. And then I had I'd done the WWA with Jeff, and we had talked about that, and he actually got to see me work, so he kind of knew I was decent, because Jerry and I, it seemed like after that we were married, so he got to see Jerry and I work. And then me and David Young worked in Nashville, so Jerry Jarrett got to see us work, and he was excited about our work, I guess you could say, and it just kind of started taking off slowly but surely from there. And then finally there was going to be a show in Alabama, thank God, in Huntsville, I believe, and we were all stoked about this. It was huge, really, for us, starting up a new company. And then Jerry Jarrett would sit down and talk to me about this and that, and I got to be honest, I really didn't know what he was talking about. It's one of those things in wrestling that you believe it when you see it. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I was waiting on, and it turned out to be the X Division for me.
When you first heard that you were going to be the centerpiece of the X Division, did you have visions of what WCW and what Vince has done and separate the smaller guys from the bigger guys?
Well, the way they explained it to me was, the whole thing where it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits, and I thought that was a great idea. But then again, it still means there's going to be smaller guys being able to do this kind of stuff. So I thought it was a great idea, but I understand, but then again, we're not saying it's a cruiserweight division, so if you can do it, come on, if you can do this kind of a style.
Did you happen to read Jerry Jarrett's book on how and the obstacles that TNA had to overcome?
I haven't yet, but I think I'd like to. I think I'd like to know what he was thinking, because I definitely seen some, weird things happen. Mm-hmm.
Well, just go list through some of the feuds that you had with TNA and just any memories you have of those. Your first match when you actually became the X Division champion, you did a 4-way match with Jerry Lynn, Low Key, and Psychosis.
Yep, and I tell you, I was a little nervous about that because there was so much to remember. With Psychosis, who didn't speak a lot of English, and the first time I met him, but then there was Low Key, who I've worked a couple times, so we were cool, and Jerry, which was easy, because we worked a couple hundred times after the WWA tour. So I was excited, but even a little bit nervous, because there's time cues and everything now, so you got to worry about that. But I just remember thinking, man, Jerry's out there for a long time. But I thought that we were gonna really pull it off. I thought this was going to separate us from everyone else.
Do you find, because you've actually, I don't want to jump ahead, but like you just wrestled Tanahashi, I think, on one of your pay-per-views, and Psychosis, I know his English is probably a little better, and you've wrestled internationally. Do you ever find that the language is a barrier communicating to
it's not so much that the language is a barrier, but the just thought process of where we're going with the move sets and stuff like that is different. Like, it's just that our thinking is just totally different. A lot of times there's just miscommunication, even when it's in the back when you're talking about it. It's still like they thought you meant this and you meant that, and so it gets a little screwy sometimes. But then again, I've had great matches with Kaz Hadashi, and he doesn't speak very good English either. Mm-hmm. So you never know. I mean, but then Kaz has been over in the States for a long time too, or had been when I wrestled him.
And how much time do you have to put into some of these matches? Because the things that you do are incredibly difficult. It's not something like the old headlock takeover where you can just kind of,
Well, sometimes you pray for not a lot of time because you can't do much. Tanahashi, in his defense, he wrestles like a heavyweight. In fact, I was a little confused on why they had me wrestling Tanahashi. I thought that, we'll bring in a smaller guy and we'll do some crazy stuff. But then again, Tanahashi is one of their bigger names. So at least I can say that I got in there with him. He's their up-and newcomer in New Japan, and he was a great guy, and it was great to work. I know the style and look was a little different than what we're used to in the X Division, but sometimes that's just the way it is. You
had some phenomenal matches with Jerry Lynn that really created what we think of today as the X Division.
Right, and I learned a lot from Jerry Lynn, a lot from him, and had great matches and had a great time, and just was excited about wrestling because Jerry Lynn, always seemed to put together matches so well, and it was always fun. It always flowed, and I always had a great time with him. Another guy that you wrestled with was Amazing Red, who was really hot for a while in TNA. Yeah, and it's a shame that he hurt his knee when he did because exactly right. He was he was very hot. That everybody loved him. He's so small. And then one of my favorite matches is just when I think I'd beat up his cousins or something like that. He got on mad, so he taxed me at the beginning of the match, and I just pushed him off, kind of stuff. But I think the finish of the match was a super Frankensteiner from the top rope, and I took a 450 bump, boom, and right when I hit, the fans were so hyped about it. They're like, ah, and Red pins me and gets the 1, 2, 3, and it was just it was great. It really was.
Does it scare you? Because Red, I guess from a financial standpoint, might have cost himself a lot of money by taking the risk that he does in the ring. That you have a similar style in that respect.
Well, you can't worry about it, though. You can't worry about getting hurt, because that's when you get hurt. It's going to happen. That's part of it, and I'll deal with that when it comes. We all have to. Hopefully, I'll just be in a better situation. It's just unfortunate that it was, early in his career when he got hurt. But then again, at least he was early in his career when he got hurt, so that he could still make a comeback.
Mm-hmm. You did get to go over to 0-1.
Mm-hmm.
Later, it wasn't right after your first meeting with Hashimoto, but you went over there and had a series of matches with Low Ki. Talk about your debut in Japan.
Oh, man, that Low Ki match is one of the best matches we've ever had. It's like we took all the matches and put them together, and it turned into an amazing match. Even the fans in 0-1, who may not even heard of AJ Styles, seemed to love. I love the match. It was put together very well. I think Low Ki and I done a very good job of it, and I was very excited about that match. And even watching it on video, sometimes it doesn't look the same, but this one was exactly the way I thought it was going to be, and it was great.
軽量級なんですが、パワーを秘めた無知のようなキック。さあ上 AJ スタイルズ AJ です。ローキーは変幻自在な技、我々はもうすでにそれは承知の上なんですが、問題はこの AJ スタイルです。日本のプロレスファンに俺の力を見せてやる。島国日本に初上陸してやった。最初の試合がローキーだ、笑わせんじゃねえ、こういうコメントを言っていました。あんなヤングボーイと一緒にするな。なるほど。
ああいうグラウンドでそういうのを取り入れてるものっていうのはあんまり見たことがないですから、そういうのも含めてローキは新しいものって言ってるんだと思いますね。
新しいローキーを見せる、そういったことを試合前に言っていました。迎撃、下から迎撃、これはまたいい角度で入りました。下から迎撃です。これは丸井さん、はい、いわば威力的にはね、当然飛んでる方の威力があるわけなんですが、助走の少ない迎撃で見事に弾き返しましたね。
そうですね、これ飛んでった方は痛いですよ、相当。
逆にリング下でこれもまた一つ一つ見せますね。
そうですね、この相手をですね、
キック狙いすまして、もう一回キック、このカバーも一つ一つが決まっていますか。スタイルズの今度はキック、ローキーを模していきましたが、これはダメ。さあ途中になりましたが、
はい、はい、でジェフ・ジャレットとか、ケム・シャムロックがいるところなんですけれども、アメリカですからエンターテインメント性はもちろんあるんですけれども、その中でWWE に対抗するように非常にこうなんていうんですかね、熱のあるというか、痛さの分かりやすいというか、そういうプロレスしてるそうですね。
その中でのトップレスラーとしての自負があります。そして相当にずる賢いという、そういった評価をもらっているようです。この AJ スタイルズの水平チョップ、60分の一本勝負です。いい回転だ、ローキーが見せた、バウンド体が黒字、カウントは2、体をうまく入れました。ローキーに反撃の力はないか、それともローキーが、いやーダメだ、セカンドロープから、そしてそのまま AJ、 おっとっとっとっと、ローキー下から続き突き上げて、そして今度は逆にチャンピオン、そのまま落とした。そして刀、どうだ、厳しいぞ AJ、 AJ 厳しい、這い上がってロープまで相当な力、ギブアップギブアップギブアップ、
after that, after Low Key and I, it was the tag match. And for some reason, I'm going to forget that. Takawa and Otani, who now these guys were New Japan Tag Team Champions, Junior Heavyweight Champions, Tag Team Junior, and they were awesome. And I remember watching them on video and going, holy crap, these guys are amazing. And then when I found out I was going to get to wrestle them, I was so stoked about wrestling these guys because I thought they were, the best. And I couldn't wait to take their moves. I wanted to make sure that I took the, triple power bomb or the DVD and the face wash and just the spinning power bomb. I wanted to take it all. And it was just a great experience.
Going back at the same time, TNA took a 2-week hiatus, and I think you left. It was as you left as a heel, and they came back 2 weeks later, and you came back as a babyface with Larry Zbyszko as your mentor. Do you remember anything about that and why they just changed directions without explanation?
I can't. I got to be honest. I have no idea.
Remember?
I don't even remember that.
Well, that's fair. How about your matches in Ring of Honor with the Briscoe brothers?
Oh, what? Me and Red had some great matches with those guys, and I miss them so much now because we had so many great matches with them. A lot of things, just seemed to gel well with those guys. I always thought they were so good, especially as a tag team. And I remember, that, and I watch it all the time on video. It's just like that move that me and Red did where I think it was me and Jay, or was it Mark? Maybe it was Mark. Me and Mark done a spot where he hits me in the face. I was coming after him in the turnbuckle, and he jumps up and kicks me in the face. And I turn around, here comes Red, and I shoot him over my head. And he actually runs Mark onto me, but I get him in a Styles Clash. And as soon as that happens, all the fans just stand up. They seen, what was coming in the finish, and it was just amazing. That was one of the most amazing matches we've ever had.
A lot of those innovative moves where you work, into a complex way of getting into like your finisher. Is a lot of that stuff just in the back when you're thinking about it, or are there some of these things on the trips that you're taking and you just jot down these ideas in your head?
I don't know when or where they come from. Usually most of them come from accidents or something like that. Or, when we're talking about the match, it just pops. You're like, hey, I got a great idea. And sometimes it works the way you want it to, and then sometimes not so much.
But what I'm saying, when you have your downtime away from wrestling, are you still thinking about the wrestling?
You know what? I would say yes and no. There are some times when I think about wrestling, maybe on trips, like you said, like when I'm driving and I'm by myself. But most of the time when I'm at home now, I'm like, hey, don't eat that, boy. I'm on suicide watch because I have a 9-month-old and he likes to eat things that you're not supposed to eat, like pennies and dimes and tissue paper and stuff like that. So I'm not so much, thinking about wrestling 24/7.
How does that put it in perspective, being a father?
Oh, that's great, man. It's the best thing ever. I know a lot of people said, it'll change your life. It's true. It does, because there's no greater thing to me than being a father. Than being this, take care of this kid for the rest of his life. It's amazing. I can't even put it into words how amazing he is.
There's Vince Russo came into TNA and did a lot of controversial, things in terms of the promotion. One of which was Lollipop getting her shirt ripped off in a live pay-per-view and being exposed for over a minute. I know that you have strong Christian values, and now being a father, as a performer and as an employee of the company, what goes into your mind when you see things like that?
I remember that, and I remember we didn't need that. There was no point in that. It was just useless. I said, I was thinking to myself, now we're just like the competition. There's nothing different about us now. It was just useless, and I remember just like, that sucks. That was just stupid. But, you try to keep it to yourself because you don't want to make, the office mad, I guess you could say. But, I think we've gotten away from that now. I think that everybody else, we've gotten okay, we know better. And I've never had anything where they've told me to do something or whatever, then, because of my faith, they know that I'm not going to get on there and cuss if I can help it. I'm not saying that I might get hit and something slip. I don't know about that. And if you think you've seen me cuss, you probably hadn't, just so you know. You may have seen freak was one of my favorite words, so just so you know.
But you can do that now because you're AJ Styles and you've earned the status of AJ Styles now. But a guy that was struggling, maybe you can think back to your Wildside days. They may
You know what? Let me think back to WCW. And I may have even heard this before, but the whole thing with Kidman and the Shooting Star. Oh, he was tore up about that because somebody else was doing his move that he wasn't doing at that time. In fact, I was doing it to the floor, not even to someone inside the ring. And he would joke around and call me AJ Styles, and I wanted to punch him right in the face and just beat him to a pulp. But couldn't do that. He's one of their top guys, so I couldn't touch him. I just had to take it, you know. And you know that's water under the bridge now, but back then, man, I just wanted to rip his head off.
But again, you were you know, bottom of the totem pole, and now you're AJ Styles. You can speak your mind.
Yeah. You know, I think I have a little bit more pull now than, but I still try to keep that stuff at a, you know, be more professional about it. You know, if I have a problem with someone, go and talk to them about it.
Your first push into becoming the world champion was with a three-way feud involving Raven. You talk about some of the memories and the background leading up to that first title run?
You know, I remember them saying something about me being heavyweight champ, and I was like, well, okay, you know, I don't know what's going on here. But then again, I was like excited about it, that I was going to be a world champion, that, you know. And I remember us getting and talking about it, and the match with, you know, Raven and Jeff, and the way it came out is like nobody saw me winning the world title. It was totally out of the picture. And at that time, I think Jeff and Vince were doing a little something, so you didn't know whose side Vince was on. So, but when it turns out, you know, when Vince hits Jeff with a guitar, the crowd just go, you know, they pop because they knew that they had a new world champion. And it was great. It really was. And you know, Vince and I had a lot of fun with that, you know, being the world champion, although he was like probably a foot taller than I was and stuff like that as my manager. But we had a good time with it.
How does it feel as a professional? I mean, that's the top in your, you know, in your profession, becoming the world champion's the top. It means that you've earned the respect of somebody to say that you're worthy of carrying my title.
It means that they're saying, hey, this cat can put butts in the seats. And for them to say that about me, you know, it means a lot, because that means I'm going out there and making sure the bills get paid, and the fans are also getting what they deserve. And that means a lot to me. It really does, for them to say that. And at that time, you know, I thought there was other guys that could definitely have, you know, ran with the ball and stuff like that. So for them to say that about me, it meant a lot.
Shortly after you won that title, you were booked in a match against Paul London in Ring of Honor. And a lot of people speculate that Paul was actually supposed to go over in that match, and because you had won your belt, that they were trying to make changes. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I'm sure that was the case. I mean, I couldn't lose being the TNA World Champion. I couldn't. Even though it was a great match, I'm sure they didn't, you know, love the finish, but, you know, that was the best that we could do at that time. You know, regardless what they say about the finish, it was still a great match.
Is that just something they know, or does TNA management tell you, listen, you got our belt,
well, you know
can't
what?
go out?
Here's my thing. If I'm the X Division champion, I don't think I should lose to anybody else other than the guys that are in TNA, because you wouldn't ask a WWE star to do that, right. And I don't feel like we're not. I feel like we're WWE and TNA are on the same level. That's the way I feel about it. And I know they wouldn't ask one of their guys to lose, so why should they ask one of us to lose?
And you don't have to mention any names, but has any promoter ever asked you to do that? While you were carrying one of the belts, to lose a match?
Oh yeah. And I remember when I was world champion, I was over in Germany, and they were going to have a guy go over. I was like, I can't, you know. And they were like, well, you know, we'll see what we can do. And I said, you got to see what you can do, because I'm not losing. This is the world title, you know, that I have, and it's a lot bigger company than what I'm at today. And I'm not going to do it. You know, I'm sorry.
Did you feel like there was any, Ring of Honor and TNA at that time? Ring of Honor had a very successful product. They were actually outdrawing TNA in terms of the live crowd. I know that wasn't what TNA was gearing their company towards. But was there any problems that in terms of where you were supposed to have your loyalty to, or did both companies pretty much sympathize with you being an independent wrestler and having to work?
Well, I think that they had a problem with it. They would have done something to where I couldn't wrestle in independence. I don't think that was the issue. You know, there's only been one time when there was an issue with TNA and Ring of Honor, and we know what that was about. So there was never really any issues. And I don't really remember Ring of Honor doing a bigger crowd than TNA. I mean, Ring of Honor usually done about 500. You know, they still do, and that's still great for independent. I don't know any other independents that do that much. But I don't remember TNA doing that bad either. You know what I'm saying? That they had less than 500 people there. I don't really remember that too much.
Going back to TNA, you worked against Sting in a tag match. How did that feel working against somebody with the status of Sting?
Oh, it was great. And just getting him to do stuff that he'd never or hadn't done in forever. Like I got him to do a crossbody, you know, over the top rope. You know, that was one of the highlights. And I got to take, you know, the Scorpion Deathlock and the Scorpion Death Drop. You know, it's one of my things. You know, I got to take all this guy's, you know, signature moves. I love it. You know, that was and Sting is such a great guy, and it was really fun to get in there and work with him. Do
you have an extra bond knowing that, you know, he has the same beliefs that you do?
Oh yeah, definitely, and it makes it easier, and you know, just it's not so much, oh my, that's Sting, I can't talk to him. No, it's Sting, you know, the guy that, you know, we share something together, you know, and it's fun. I'm glad he's with TNA now, just because we get to hang out.
Mm-hmm. You dropped the belt to Jeff Jarrett. Did you feel like the direction that they were doing was kind of backwards in terms of going back to somebody who's kind of had more mileage on him than someone who's a little more exciting and younger like yourself?
Well, you know what, though? Jeff, it's true that Jeff had been more on TV more than I have, and I understand that. So, and usually that happens when we were going to Fox Sports Net. You know, that happened. And Spike, you know, I understand that people know Jeff a lot more than they know AJ Styles, and you want the guy who has you know, more mileage under his name than, you know, anybody, and that was Jeff at the time. So I understood that.
Some people, were you the worst responsible for bringing in Abyss to TNA?
No. Dutch was, actually, because Dutch was over in Puerto Rico, and Abyss actually got the character Abyss in Puerto Rico, so he was definitely responsible for that.
You alluded to it briefly. You said there was an instance where TNA and Ring of Honor, everything. There was the issue with Rob Feinstein, and when he split from Ring of Honor, there was a rumor that you and Low-Key openly stated if Rob was still involved with this company that you refused to work for it. Was that true? Did you say that, or was that something that someone said that may have?
Well, that was really how I felt, and there was just a lot of stuff going on where Ring of Honor didn't know the whole facts, you know, and it turned out to be where they said he wasn't working for him, but no, he wasn't, but he was still collecting the paycheck, so therefore he was still working for him. So it was just a big red light when TNA got involved, and it just, you know, the better thing was to just, you know, let's chill out with Ring of Honor for a while, let things die down, and then we'll go back. And that's exactly what happened.
If Rob had stayed with the company, do you think you would have been able to go back?
I don't think a lot of us would have went back. I can't say that I blame Ring of Honor, but they got to know that Rob hurt them bad. And I was afraid that they, you know, may go under because of this. But, you know, they fought through it, and, you know, they're still rolling hard today.
Mm-hmm. You were crowned the first Ring of Honor Pure Wrestling Champion. What were your thoughts on winning that title and what that means to you?
It was very cool because they, I've never won their world title, but it was neat that they thought that I deserved one. And I'm not saying they made this title for me, but it was really neat to hold that for the first time, you know, with Ring of Honor and stuff like that. And it was, you know, the Pure Wrestling. So usually I'm considered X Division. Well, then, you know, at least we got to show that, you know, that you can be a pure wrestler too. So it was neat. I enjoyed the tournament that was in to get me there and some of the matches that I had.
Do you think that pure wrestling style would ever work on something like what TNA runs with their fan base, or is that type of champion and that type of wrestling and how that's a little different? Is that just to that niche market that Ring of Honor has?
You know what? I think it's got to be that niche market because so many other companies have spoiled, like, WWE has spoiled guys where if you hold on to a headlock for too long, they're going to chant boring. Just because they don't know any better, because they don't know anything about wrestling fans, or the wrestling fans don't know anything about wrestling.
Right.
If they did, they know that our headlock's part of it. Ring of Honor, their fans know that, and so they appreciate it. So definitely it could work in Ring of Honor, but I don't know if it would work in TNA or WWE.
And I'm jumping back and forth between these two companies, just trying to keep the timeline here. You were obviously very busy with both companies. You worked and got involved with a feud with Abyss, where Johnny Fairplay was involved. A lot of people made some comments that he was difficult to work with.
Johnny, I don't know that he was difficult to work with. He was, sometimes really annoying. And Johnny swears that I tried to kill him with a power bomb, but that's not the truth. I didn't try to kill him with it. It's just the fact that he was so light that when I went to power bomb him, it looked like I killed him. But I gotta say that yes, Johnny can be annoying, but you know what? I like him. He's funny. He makes me laugh.
You think most of the guys considered him an asset to the company, considering what he brought?
As far as the guys, the boys in the back, probably not. I don't know what they were thinking, but I'm sure it was like, why is Johnny here? He's a reality TV guy. Why is he here? So I don't know if he brought the ratings or anything. I don't know anything about that.
After the second time that you lost to the title to Jeff Jarrett, they said that the only reason they took the title off of you is because Jarrett wanted to go into the new product on Fox Sports as the champion. Do you know anything about the rationale why they did the title change?
Well, I think we've already talked about this, and that he was the bigger name, and I think that's important. That you got to know who a heavyweight champion is, and he was definitely the bigger name. So I totally understand that, like I said before.
And then you went back to working the X Division and recreating that for a new audience. Did you feel in any way that was a step down?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think I love the X Division, and that's I think I'm one of the guys who helped create it, and I'm proud of that. And like I said, I'm proud of the X Division, proud to be a part of it.
In summer of 2004, you started to work for my favorite promotion, is Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Why did you choose Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, being as busy as you are, to maintain a regular schedule with?
Well, honestly, I think that it was one of those things where they chose me, and they had dates that not just one every once in a while, but a couple that I could have them on my schedule. I mean, they just were more professional. It was easier to book myself there because they were so far in advance with their booking. And it turns out I've had some great matches there with Jamie Noble and Samoa Joe and Chris Daniels, and and it's been a lot of fun.
What makes PWG different than Ring of Honor in terms of the in-ring style?
Honestly, nothing. They're pretty much California's Ring of Honor, or Ring of Honor's PWG, and they're both the same. If you ask me, there's a lot of the same guys there, so they're not really, to me, that much different. Maybe the pay-per-view, or I guess pay-per-see, their videos or whatever they call them, their show names are different, drastically different. But maybe I think a lot of times PWG does a lot more stuff where they'll do some comedy in there than Ring of Honor would. I think that's the only really big difference for me.
And how about the fan bases themselves?
I think those guys are pretty much the same. They still appreciate, if you work hard, they'll appreciate that. So it's not a lot different, to be honest with you.
You had some matches for the X Division title with Kid Cash. How were your matches with him?
At that time, they were difficult. Our psychology, the way we thought of it, was very different.
Explain what you mean by that. How is his psychology different than yours?
Just little things like I didn't think I wanted to need to be at the end of a match when he thought that it's okay to do a hop pop there. When I was thinking if we're at the end of the match, we shouldn't have that much energy to do something like that. I don't want to go into detail about it. It's just, I don't even think I can remember, all the stuff that was going on with that. And back then, we didn't really like each other. I don't know what the issue was exactly, but we got that straightened out towards the end of our time that we got to wrestle together. And even though we had this heat, we still had great matches. It was, you know,
I was going to ask the follow-up, does that ever get in the way of putting together a good match?
You know, it didn't sometimes, but it was a street fight that was one of the best ones that we've ever had. You know, I don't know if that added to it. You know, it was just a street fight, and we was kick and punch and fell off through a balcony through a table, and it was one of the best things we've ever done together. So go figure.
I was going to ask you about 2 different instances with Teddy Hart, but just for the sake of time, I'm just going to throw out. I had the idea of you wrestling Ballpark Brawl, and then there was the issue of what he did at the Ring of Honor show.
Well, you know, Teddy and I didn't enjoy Teddy because he asked me about a move, and I told him not to. You know, that wouldn't be a good idea if you used it, and he used it anyway. So he was already on my bad side, and then the thing of Ring of Honor, where he pissed everybody off, and it was one of those issues where, like, oh, Joe's going to kill him. And I stood up and sat back down because I didn't care if Joe killed him. And then with Ballpark Brawl, I told him, you know, hey, you know, you don't need to do another dive. So it was one instance where he goes, I remember Sabu going, oh, he's diving. I go, he just dove. He goes, oh. And I go, see ya. And I walked off. I'm not going to lie about it. I did. I walked right off and let him go because he's never going to learn if he doesn't miss. If you keep catching him, he's never going to learn. So, but you know what? After all that, we had a match in Hawaii, actually 2, and they were very good, and I was very happy about them. And I think he was too. So I think we found a happy medium, you know, with our psychology and our flips, and it turned out to be great matches.
Do you see him, because, you know, some people will say a nice word is a head case. Do you see him as being a future superstar in wrestling, or is he not one of the ones you put at the top of your list?
The guy's an athlete. There's no doubt about it. The things he does are pretty amazing. But then again, you got to have psychology. You can't just do crazy stuff all the time. So I can't say that I'd put him at the top of my list just because he lacks psychology, and which I think is 90% of wrestling. I mean, if it wasn't, then why is The Rock, you know, such a huge superstar? He didn't do it that much, but my gosh, you know, his charisma and psychology was there. Mm-hmm. You know, at least as far as the fans were concerned.
Another promotion that you spent a lot of time with was IWA Mid-South.
Yeah, and I've had some great matches there. With, you know, Matt Seidel, we've had so many great matches there. And the Ted Petty had some great matches in that. So, you know, I'm not saying that it was the best environment in the world as far as where we wrestled, but you know what? You know, people still came to see us.
You've been kind of fortunate in some ways. As you know, a lot of guys at your status have to wrestle the promoters of some organizations and stuff, but you've gotten to wrestle a lot of good people around the country.
Well, thank God that less promoters are wrestling, you know, because I'm sure that would be the case. But yeah, you know, luckily I get to go and wrestle a lot of great guys, a lot of great wrestlers, and you know, what keeps coming to mind is like Matt Seidel, Delirious, guys who are up and coming, Jay Lethal, Austin Aries, all those guys. You know, I've got the opportunity to wrestle because, you know, of doing the indies.
When someone will contact you about a booking, and I know that someone else handles that for you and stuff, but who you're working, does that play a big part in whether you say yes or no?
Well, honestly, no, it doesn't. It's a job. So if you want me to wrestle Joe, you know, whoever, I will, you know. But sometimes, though, I got to say that there's some guys I really wouldn't want to lose to. Like, I really don't want to lose to this 105-pound guy who barely knows any wrestling. In fact, the fans don't want to see it either. Sometimes y'all want to call an audible in the middle of a match because they have no idea who this cat is, and they want me to lose to him, and the fans aren't going to be happy about it, you know. And sometimes, you know, you don't want to let that happen. You know, if it's not believable, let's just, you know, have a great match and let the fans appreciate that you had a great match with the guy that they know better, you know.
Fall of 2004, rumors began to circulate that TNA management told certain workers that they didn't want them working for Ring of Honor because it was considered competition. Was that not a true rumor?
I'd never heard that. Never, ever.
A lot of the questions were if that was true. So, Do you feel like TNA's ever said to you don't work in certain situations for any certain promotions other than the one that we've already discussed?
They've never said anything. I mean, you got to understand, they know that the indies are where we get paid. That's where we work. That way they don't have to pay us so much money, you know, because they let us do indies. So they've never said anything like that. I've never heard anything like that.
How does it compare, like someone in your status where you have, you know, part-time for TNA and then you're able to do all these other bookings compared to what you know someone at your level at WWE would make? Is it pretty comparable?
Oh, I think so. I think that I'd probably be making more as far as the money flow goes, but and doing probably less traveling and getting taken care of better. I don't have to rent a car. There's usually someone picking me up on the indies, or paying for the hotel as well. So it's a lot better. I mean, that's why I think a lot of people want to come to TNA, because they're having a hard time making a lot of money at WWE right now.
Mm-hmm. When TNA started to run their monthly pay-per-views in fall of 2004, the first feud you had was with Petey Williams. Talk about your memories of your matches with Petey.
I remember just the great finish that we had with, that me and Petey had. And I felt like that they didn't give us enough time. That kind of sucked. I thought that we were going to have a great X Division match, and we did, but it was still short. And I think people wanted to see more X Division on that particular, pay-per-view. But you know what? Regardless of how much time we had, the finish was amazing, and everybody got to see the Canadian Destroyer, so it was fun.
First time you took that, did you have any reservations?
I wanted to take it. I remember seeing Chris Sabin take it and going, I don't know if I'll ever be able to take it that well. And I still don't think I take it as good as Sabin, but man, I couldn't wait to take that move. As scary as it may seem, it was one of those moves that it was so cool you had to take it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of finishers, where did your Styles Clash come from?
Two kids playing on a trampoline, trying to power bomb each other, and the light bulb went off, and I went over there and Style Clash my brother-in-law. So it sounds crazy and simple, but that's exactly the way it happened.
Have you ever hurt anybody with that move?
Have I ever hurt anybody? Frankie Kazarian, got bruised his sternum, but this is all his fault. If you get hurt with the Styles Clash, it's the guys taking it. It's their fault. And even I've given it to guys and they've tucked their head, and I have no sympathy for them because I've told them, why would you tuck your head on a face bump? It doesn't make any sense. So I have no sympathy for them anymore. At first, I was feeling really bad about it. Now, I could care less.
After you dropped the X Division title to Petey, they moved you into some of the older guys that were being booked with, like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Randy Savage. Do you enjoy working with guys like that are obviously as athletically gifted as some of the other guys you've worked with?
Well, you know what? It just makes you work harder, makes you think up more ideas. And so I like that. I like being challenged. I mean, it's easy to work, Samoa Joe and Chris Daniels all the time, but when you got to work someone who doesn't exactly have the same style, well, that it shows, I guess, what kind of wrestler you are if you can get in there and still have a great match. And sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can, so you never know.
Talk about going into an Ultimate X match compared to what a traditional ladder match would be in terms of trying to pull off a good match.
Well, the Ultimate X is so different. You feel like you're obligated to do something crazy when you're in a match like that. But Petey Williams, Chris Sabin, and I had a great Ultimate X and had some psychology with it, which I think was probably one of the at least the second best Ultimate X in TNA, just because I was so proud of the psychology that we used in there, and had a great match. I'll never forget that one. But again, you feel like you're obligated to do something really stupid, and I think I accomplished that with when Chris Sabin drop kicked me and I took the inside out bump from the cables, which is a long ways down and very scary.
Do you have an opportunity to get a lot of the feedback from your matches from the fans that watch?
I don't get to. No, I never really get to hear it. I like to hear what they're thinking sometimes, just to see if they appreciated what we did.
You mentioned them. How about some of the memories of the Iron Man match you had with Christopher Daniels?
Man, those are, I've had two, and the first one was so good and so well done. We had the blood flowing, which added to the match, and he was the heel, I was the face. It was, everybody recognized that, and it was a great match. I would probably say that was probably better than the second that we had. But I remember the second Iron Man match, I was so exhausted. I had zero energy left after that match because we worked so hard. I don't remember us ever really having time to rest in that match. 30 minutes of go, 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 go. You know, just, you know, I don't know many people that can do that, and so I'm proud of that.
Is there anybody that you enjoy wrestling more than wrestling with Christopher Daniels?
You know, Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe are my boys. That's just the way it is. You know, and David Young, I love wrestling him just because I can, I know what he does, and therefore, you know, he doesn't get the opportunity and to do some of the moves that he's, you know, really good at doing. Elix Skipper, him and I always think of, he's my roommate at TNA, so we always think of crazy ideas, but then again, we never get to wrestle. So, you know, low key, there's a lot of guys that I really enjoy wrestling, and, you know, but they're different styles of too, you know, but I've had great matches with all those guys.
I was going to ask you about Elix Skipper. The internet crowd doesn't seem to have as much respect for him as a wrestler as someone like yourself. They say, well, you know, he's athletically gifted and sure, but can you defend Elix since you work against him?
Elix Skipper probably has the best balance of any wrestler I've ever seen. It's amazing. I mean, he walked across the cage. And the problem is, like, it's hard for Elix to do that stuff because some people just can't take it. They don't know how to do it right. And so it ends up looking like crap or whatever. So I can defend Elix in that part where he has to, you know, go back to, well, I'll kick you in the back, because he works a lot of heavyweights now. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they can't do the stuff that he, well, you know, made him break out as far as walking the cage and stuff, which was probably the craziest move I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm. How does it feel to be on the other side of things now? When you're, you know, you used to wrestle guys, I guess, to get the rub, to put yourself up at a higher level in terms of your perception, and now you're the guy that people are putting them against for them to elevate themselves. And one guy I'm thinking about is Jimmy Rave in Ring of Honor, who struggled to get over with the crowd, and they put him with you. And all of a sudden, he's at being able to elevate it to the status they wanted to put him at.
Well, you know, I'm glad that they think of me that way, that getting the rub, if I even can rub, you know, to make anybody more of a superstar. I'm glad that they think of me that way, because I don't think of myself like that. Jimmy Rave's a great heel. He knows exactly how to be a heel, and most people don't. And I think that's what made Jimmy Rave, you know, get to the next level, that he knows how to be the bad guy. And that's, a lot of people, they don't get it in wrestling. He gets it.
The third time that you won the World Championship, they portrayed it on TV as this is your first time in achieving your dream. I know it was to a new audience, but did you feel like that was a slap in the face to all the fans that you had built up?
Yeah, I kind of did. But then again, it was bittersweet, you know, to make sure, you know, to be the guy that takes the belt off of Jeff Jarrett, which the crowd seemed to love. But, you know, it didn't last very long.
Why didn't it last very long?
I have no idea. I have no idea at all, because we didn't have television, so it made no sense to me. But you know what? I knew where I was going. I knew I was going back to the X Division, and that was okay. That was okay with me. If they want to be put back there, I'm cool with that. Do
you believe the opinion that sometimes they give belts to guys who actually need them, and someone like you obviously doesn't need a belt to be AJ Styles? You've won the fan award for TNA the last 3 years, so it's indicative that you don't need to carry a title to be perceived as one of the most important guys of the company.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I hope that I don't have to have a belt to be recognized as someone. But wrestling's what I do best. You know, I'm not saying that I can cut the best interviews, at least not as a face. I will say that. You let me get in there as a heel, man, I can really say what's on my mind. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. But I don't know. You know, the fans have to make that decision. I don't know whether or not I need a belt to get over with them or not.
How important do you think Mike Tenay has been to the success of your company?
Huge, huge. Because Mike knows everything about wrestling. He probably has forgot more than I'll ever know. You know, it's just... and he's such a pleasure to have there, because you can talk to him about things. Even as a commentator, he understands where you're going with it, and he wants to hit those spots in the match to tell a good story. So it's huge, huge.
You worked for a group called Christian Wrestling Federation, and you know, by the time some people watch this interview, it'll probably be dated, but they're going to have a pretty significant article presented on them in a magazine.
Oh, you know, I didn't know that, because I haven't wrestled with them in forever. A lot of times when I'd work for them, they'd call me in maybe a month in advance. And now, I mean, I can get booked up for, you know, 8 months in advance. And so that I never get to wrestle for them. Mm-hmm. We still try to keep in touch, you know. but it's something that I haven't been able to wrestle with them for a long time. But I do get to go do wrestling shows for other Christian companies.
How hard is it to be a devout Christian in the wrestling business? Because I know a lot of people, maybe on the outside, they're peripheral fans or even longtime fans. They look at wrestling as what Vince is doing.
Well, you know what? It's hard to be a Christian, period. Not just as a, getting out there and be wrestling. It's not, easy. People think it's, oh, well, you're perfect. To me, being a Christian means I'm not perfect. I'm telling you this. I'm going to screw up. And so it's even harder. I mean, I'm under as much pressure, as everybody else. They don't want to cheat on their wives. I don't want to cheat on my wife either, but there's still hot girls all around me. It's hard. It's not easy, but I got to make that choice. I got to make the right decision. It's really difficult, and I don't know how to explain this. I'm no different than you. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna screw up, but that's just part of it. It's difficult being a Christian, period.
How much would that weigh into a decision on whether, if they were at at the stage they're at now, if you were up for contract renegotiations and you had an offer from Vince and you had an offer from TNA, would being a Christian at this point in time with the way they run their companies make any decision easier?
Well, the decision's easy for me because I know that just the travel time is totally different. I want to be home with my family. But this is a business. This is how I make money. This is how this is my job. If they want to offer a ridiculous amount of money, then I'd be a fool to turn some of it down, because then I can, sign the contract, make for 3 years, save that money and retire, and then I won't have to deal with that mess anymore. But, who knows what's going to happen. And I don't think for the most part that being a Christian or not, because, Shawn Michaels is up there and he seems to be doing okay. There's some other guys up there, that I really enjoy being around. But then again, who wants to be miserable either? So from what I've heard, right. I don't know.
Vince Russo has come back, became a Christian. He just wrote a book, and I think you worked for him on one of his shows recently.
Yeah, and had a great time. What a great show! And he got, he let me get up there and pretty much shared the same thing that I share with you. That being a Christian doesn't mean I'm perfect. It means I'm going to screw up. And I think a lot of people got that, and they understand where I'm coming from. And it was just great to see where Vince has come from. I've seen the old Vince, mm-hmm. and I've seen the new Vince, and man, it's a change that you can't believe until you really get to sit down and talk to him. It's just a total change in Vince, and I love the guy. I just love being around him.
Did you hate the old Vince?
I didn't hate the old Vince either now. I think a lot of times just because you get saved doesn't mean you change as a person. It's just your thoughts. Mm-hmm. They become a lot clearer on what you should do and make it right from wrong and say, hey, you're not going to spend that much time on earth. You better make sure that how much you tell people you appreciate them, because life is short,
mm-hmm. Right now, maybe the hottest guy in TNA other than yourself is Samoa Joe. He just came in here, and you're obviously no stranger to Samoa Joe, wrestling him all over the world. But he's really caught fire in TNA. Did you think he'd be as...
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. And man, me and Chris, it seemed like we were begging him. Hey, bring Joe in, bring Joe in, bring Joe. Oh, well, he's a little bigger guy. Bring Joe in, we hear excuses after excuses, but when he finally got there, he showed everybody that he deserves to be there. And even still, I'm like, hey, let's bring this guy. I'm like, didn't you hear, the way I told you to, you should have brought Joe in. And so why aren't you listening to me now, But I think it's obvious that Joe is going to be probably one of the biggest superstars in TNA. And he's been in the shortest amount of time of anybody probably. And he's just doing amazing.
Some people say that he works a little too stiff. You've wrestled him so many times. Do you think he's any more stiff than anyone else?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, he might be a little bit snug, but then again, that's the way I like it. People want to believe that wrestling's real. They want to. I want to believe it. And sometimes they just can't deny it when Samoa Joe kicks you in the chest or in the back or whatnot. But it's nothing that I can't handle. And if you can't handle that, then you don't deserve or need to be in this business.
You mentioned there were some other guys you've lost. I mean, I don't want you to exclude anybody and try to be a full list, but some of the other guys that you think would be a real asset to TNA right now?
Oh, definitely Matt Sydal. He is the guy that will put the X Division back on the map. I think because he's amazing. The stuff he does is just unbelievable. He's one of those guys who are like, oh, he's the next AJ Styles. He's not, because he's a lot better than I am. And I can't wait for him to get there. I know it's just a matter of time, and they'll, think I've heard excuses of why he's not there, but sometimes there's going to be a point where they're going to say, you know what, screw it. He's doing awesome. And I've had great matches with him. So that'd be the guy I pulled for. We've pulled for Austin, finally got him here. And there's going to be some other guys. I mean, it's not going to stop there. There's going to be a lot more guys that we're going to get into TNA.
TNA's always been the underdog. There's been a lot of doubters that say there's any day they're going to go out of business.
Yep.
You're the focal point of that company along with a few other guys. But how do you feel in terms of the confidence level that TNA is going to survive?
I'm more confident than ever right now. I mean, we're doing stuff that no one's ever seen before. And when they do see it, they're like, holy crap, we've got a 6-sided ring. That's another attention getter. And I love that ring. I think it's better than the 4 sides that we wrestle in all the time. We've got guys who don't exactly look like they're the biggest cats in the world, but the stuff that they can do is just too amazing to not watch. Samoa Joe, 280 pounds, jumping over the top rope, that's something that you'll never see in WWE. That's what makes us different. And you know what? We actually wrestle. And I think that's what people want to see. They're tired of all this, and we've got it if you want to see it, but not so much that you're going to turn the channel. And that's what separates us from everybody else.
Your kid's 9 months old. If he was 9 years old right now, would you let him watch all the wrestling that's on TV?
I definitely have to sit there with him and watch it with him. But TNA, I get to watch it all the time, and as far as I'm concerned, for the most part, they really don't do anything that I would disagree with. WWE, it looks like they're slowing down with the chicks and stuff like that, which is usually the main part, where they start screwing up. Not that they can't wrestle, just that they show off stuff that you can see on Cinemax at 12 o'clock at night or whatever. I just see no point in it. But I think they're done. Well, at least we are. With that stuff. We don't have to worry about that anymore. TNA.
How much of a toll does it take, this type of traveling on your? You don't travel as much as you said, a WWE guy, but if anyone looks at what your travel schedule is like, it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah, well, you know what? I say it's not like WWE guys, but I mean, I'm wrestling or leaving at least 3 or 4 times a week. But then again, I'm coming home as soon as I can. I take the early flights, get home and whatnot. And sometimes there's a week where I don't do nothing, and I'm home the whole week. Not a lot of WWE guys can say that. I do wrestle on the weekends, but TNA's every other week. So there may be a Monday through Thursday that I'm home for 4 days straight. So that's huge.
What's the meaning behind the necklace that you used to wear to the ring?
It was actually my wedding ring, and it's one of the things I never wanted to take off. So if it had to come from my finger, I was going to wear it here, and if I don't have it around my neck, I'm going to put it on my finger. It's just one of those things that I'm not ever going to. I'm not going to try to take it off or whatever. I'm not going to hide it. If there's no doubt that AJ Styles is married. And that doesn't bother me that everyone knows it.
The rumor is you're a big gamer.
Huge gamer. In fact, as far as I know, and this is including WWE guys, I was the first to have 360. Thank God I have friends at EB Games who made sure I got the first 360. But, I'm huge, But then again, there's a lot of guys who get it. We all get online and play together and have a good time. But huge gamer. Who
are your friends in wrestling? You mentioned Joe and Daniels, but who are the people that if you didn't wrestle again at one other time, you'd call your friends?
Definitely David Young and Elix Skipper. I'm friends with everybody, but these guys would probably be the guys I'd keep calling. We'd hang out, not just because of wrestling. We'd go do something. It's unfortunate that we live so far apart. The only guys that I could really stay in touch with would be Joe and Daniels, because they both live in California. Our wives and girlfriends, they know each other. If they have a problem, they can call each other. If they have a problem with us, they call each other. So, but you know, those are definitely at least 4 guys that I would always hang out with, even after wrestling. You know, after it's over, we'll still hang out.
If there anything you can change about your current situation where you're working for TNA and the groups that you've selected to work for, what would you change about it?
Maybe some storylines that I really can't go into detail about that I think that would help with TNA. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, everything's going great. It's not like we're losing anything. I think Joe is the next heavyweight champion of the world, if you ask me. I think I haven't had enough shots, or at least a competitive shot at the tag team titles. So maybe me and Daniels one day will be a tag team and go through that division and, you know, bring up the X Division guys and let them show what they can do. You know, there's Chris Sabin, Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley, Petey Williams that can definitely take care of the X Division. Austin Aries is another guy that's X Division, you know, champion bound. You know, these are great guys, and I think that would be the one thing that I would change.
You have any desire to go back to Japan, or is the travel you just prefer to stay here?
You know what? I don't mind going back to Japan. It's just if I'm going back there, I'm going to make it worth my while. I said the last company that I worked for was Big Mouth over in Japan, and I'm not sure if it's fairly new, but I had a great time there, and they took care of me and had a great match with Petey Williams over there that they seem to be happy with. So, yeah, definitely I'd go back.
What else would you want to say to your fans that maybe we did not cover in this interview?
That if you ever go into MySpace, I've never, ever got on there. So if there's an AJ Styles on there, it's not me. I've never been on there. So you can just erase him off or call him a name and then erase him off because he's a liar. So that's been a big issue, by the way.
It's been a big issue?
Issue, yeah. There's like 6 AJ Styles on there. It's never been me, ever.
So if they wanted to find out something about you that's true on the internet, where would you point them?
They'd have to go to stylesclash.com. I mean, it's as simple as that.
So you haven't been hooked on MySpace like everybody?
Never. I'm not a big internet guy. The only time I get on the internet is to play video games.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you very much, AJ, for taking the time. For those of you who don't know, we squeezed this in right before a Samoa Joe match here in Birmingham, Alabama, which I hope I gave him enough time to prepare for, even getting changed in time for.
If nothing else, I may have another scar on this side of my lip, you know, rather than just this one from where Joe punched me in the face.
Thanks again, AJ.
All right, man.